Well, good evening, and welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. It's Wednesday night, it's 8 o'clock. We're going to chop it up on the latest and greatest things in sports. But before we do that, our panel, we'll start with one of my longtime neighborhood buddies, the dancingest guy in the Washington metro area, Mr. Go-Go Earl. Good evening. How you doing?
Good evening, Charles. I'm doing well. Great to see you. And I'm looking forward to this evening's show. I'm excited.
Well, I am too. And then we have Mr. Larry Abels. Larry also is another neighborhood buddy of mine, high school colleague. Mr. Abels, how are you doing, sir?
Everything's good on this end, Chuck. How about you?
I'm great, man. I'm absolutely excited, and I'm great. And Mr. David Burnett from Indianapolis, Indiana. Mr. Burnett, everybody pause for a second. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great from the sports capital of the world. I'm glad you asked.
But listen, I'm so excited about today's show, as I'm always normally am, but I'm even extra excited because we have a special guest tonight. We have Mr. Cornelius Green. Cornelius. Oh my goodness! We call him the old quarterback, number 7 from Ohio State University, the first Black starting quarterback in Columbus at Ohio State, MVPs of the Rose Bowl. But before he did that, in Washington D.C., he played baseball, football, basketball. He might even ran a little track, and he was all met in all those sports. He could do it all. And so it's just a pleasure of mine, an honor to have Mr. Green join us on the show. Cornelius, how you doing?
Chuck. Thank you, Go-Go. Thank you, David. Thank you, Larry. It's a pleasure being here this evening. Looking forward to the show.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So look, what I wanted to do, we're going to start off, Corny. I just want to ask you a couple things, and then we're going to go around the panel. Let the panel ask you a couple things as well.
Sure.
And so before we get started, as I mentioned, you were pretty good in sports in high school at Dunbar High School here in Washington, D.C. Did you have a favorite sport, or what was your best sport? Did you have a favorite one, and what was your best sport?
My favorite and best sport was baseball. And I had a great baseball career, started in Recreation League, and then the Boys Club League, and then in high school, had a 500 batting average. I was 30-2 in pitching, and got drafted by the Cardinals in the second round. So I was really proud of that.
Wow! Hey, Corey, did you did Dunbar win the inter high when you were a senior?
You know, we went to the championship and we lost 4-3, and guess what? We lost over at St. Albans School.
Oh, you lost? Oh, that's where the championship game was played.
Yeah, the championship game was there. We lost to Anacostia 4-3, and never forget, I was up, bases loaded, and I hit a ball the deep center field, and for some reason the guy at third didn't tag up and come home, and then the next guy popped out, and that's how we lost the championship. So awful way to end a baseball career.
So Cordy, look, so how about basketball? What
basketball? I played basketball because it was the season. And I averaged right at about 24, 25 points a game at Dunbar. So we was average. We didn't make a lot of noise in basketball, but I was one of the top scorers in the league.
Wow. And then, of course, football. How did that work out? How did football work out for you?
Well, the good thing about football was my junior year, I got a few looks from North Carolina Central, and then Howard came in, and I didn't realize I would have a good football career. And then the following season, Ohio State came in, and Coach Rudy Hubbard told me once everybody knew Ohio State wanted me, everybody would want me. And I got over 80 scholarships after Ohio State came in.
Wow. Holy moly. And so listen, and I want to move on to Ohio State, and then I will turn it over to the panel because I'm serious. I could do this all night with you, as you know. But I just want to briefly talk about your backfield because everybody knows, at least I think everyone knows, and I know you had one of the greatest backfields in the history of college football. And
Yeah, I mean,
I want you to talk about that backfield and tell me who was in that backfield.
Well, Pete Johnson was our fullback, and prior to Pete Johnson, we had Champ Henson, and Champ Henson led the school in scoring. And so Pete ended up beating Champ out, and he ended up getting the record for all-time scoring. Then we had Brian Bashnagel, who was one of the best tailbacks out of Pennsylvania. So Woody knew he couldn't play Archie and Brian at the same time at tailback, so they moved Brian over to wingback. And then, of course, my roommate, Archie Griffin, really changed my life meeting him. Great Christian guy, man. I ended up joining the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Really helped me in my Christian side of my life. But, people don't realize Archie had 31 straight games over 100 yards. And that started our first game of the season. We played Minnesota. He got 100 yards. And we only had 32 regular season games. And our last game was at Michigan, and Michigan stopped him. I think he had maybe about 80 yards in that game, but 31 straight games over 100 yards was amazing. And another thing was as close as we were, even though Archie won his second Heisman his senior year, I was voted most valuable player on the team, and over Archie, and I won by one vote.
Right.
So Woody asked me who did I vote for. I told him I voted for Archie, and he asked Archie who he voted for. Archie said he voted for me. So that's how close we were, man. If he votes for himself, he wins by one vote. So, and then I was MVP in the Big Ten Conference, because only way you can be MVP in the Big Ten Conference, you have to be the MVP on your team. So every Big Ten team sends a MVP representative, and of course I was a Ohio State representative, and ended up being the MVP in the Big Ten.
How about the Rose Bowl? You were also
that Rose Bowl thing, man, was something, because my sophomore year we played Michigan, and I had hurt my thumb before the game, and the game ended up in a 10-10 tie, and Woody only attempted to pass one time during the whole game, one time, and so I always kind of put that on my shoulder. So my hand was well when we went to the Rose Bowl, and of course I was I think it was 7 out of 9 in passing, and scored 2 touchdowns, and got the MVP at 19 years old, and that kind of changed everything. Washington, D.C. too. I came back home, and Mayor Washington proclaimed January 4th Cornelius Green Day, gave me the key to the city. At 19, man, you're wondering, like, how am I going to live life and accomplish something as great as this? But one thing Woody said, don't believe that person that you're reading about. Know who you really are.
Right. That's Corny. That is absolutely great. Well, look, I again could dominate this, but I want to throw it out to the gentlemen and see if they've got a question or two before we chop up some sports. Hey, Go, you got anything you'd like to ask?
Um,
Oh, you see Mark Downs is sending a note in, right?
Yeah, my man Mark.
No, I don't. I'm in awe right now, so I don't want to fumble or say anything dumb or silly, so I'm just kind of laid back.
David, do you have anything you want to ask Corny?
I do. And my question is, it's about Woody Hayes. You played for one of the great college coaches of all time, but his career unfortunately ended in kind of, I don't want to say disgrace, but unfortunately. What was it like to play for Woody Hayes, and how did you feel about the way his career ended?
First of all, I got to meet Woody when I was 18 years old, and never forget, it was in December, and so I had taken several trips, recruiting trips prior to Ohio State, and I had spent. Woody asked me what I wanted to major in. I told him in business, and he looked at me, thought I was skinny, thought I might hurt my neck, and all his other schools telling me how great I was. And Woody was analyzing me, but he said, "Hey, if you're good enough, you'll play, and if you're not, you won't." But what stuck with me was I spent 2.5 hours over that business college, and I was like, when the heck am I getting out of here so I can see the stadium? I want to see the uniforms. I was all about that. So when I came home, told my mom, I said, "Mom, I don't know. All they were talking about was school. And she said, "Yeah, that's where you're going to go." So he helped me make that decision. But you know, Woody, David, on the other second part of your question, Woody was a tough soldier, man. I mean, he just hated mistakes. And I think what sent him over the edge was he wanted to run the ball because the ball was on the 3-yard line, and they call a fullback draw or something, and they threw an interception. So I think that just took him over the top. And I think Woody was having some diabetes problems too. You know, if he didn't take his medication, you know, that can get off. And you know, we're older now, so we got relatives that might have diabetes problems and can see how they can go off whack a little bit. So I think that's really what happened.
Wow.
Okay, I appreciate.
Now, when you hey David, when you say what happened, so what are you talking about when he hit the Clemson guy, Corny?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and just fortunate or unfortunate that the Clemson guy ran on the Ohio State sideline and put the ball on in everybody's face. That was the wrong thing to do too. So.
Woody wasn't having that.
I just think it was really unfortunate for his career to end like that because he was a great coach. No matter what we may think of him, he made Ohio State.
Yes, he did, David, and he made a lot of men. And one reason why I'm at St. Albans School today is to pay it forward, because when I was a freshman, Woody would put us all in a van and take us over to the Children's Hospital. And man, we had to go in all those kids' room and brighten up their day. We had to do that 3 days a week, no matter who you were. And so by the time I got to be a sophomore and I got to start, I got some calls from some parents whose kids had cancer and didn't have but a week or two to live. And, you know, we had to go over there and spend time with that family and those kids. And I know Archie and I did it over 20 times during our career.
Wow.
So, I mean, so Woody, he was a great guy, man. I mean, you know, the things he did, I got a lot of publicity from a negative light. But you talk to any of his players, you know what type of heart he had. Guy never took a raise. You know, he's at Ohio State, never made over $25,000. You know, and his coaches would always complain because they couldn't get a raise. But Woody always donated his salary back to the school.
Right.
Wow. Hey, Larry, do you have a question for Mr. Green?
Yeah, I was going to ask Corny about how was your first time starting against Michigan? How did that go?
Well, you know, I couldn't wait for that game to start, and unfortunately, I got hurt, Larry. I hurt my thumb that game, the Iowa game before we played Michigan, and that whole week my thumb was swollen, and we didn't pass at all, and I really put that game on me because the game ended up in a 10-10 tie. And, you know, you're coming from Dunbar, you playing in front of 1,000 people, you think you got a packed house. You up there in Michigan, it's 110,000.
Yeah.
That game, man, it was probably the toughest game I've ever played, or toughest team I've ever played outside of USC. USC was tough.
Did they have a black quarterback too, Corny?
Yeah, Michigan had Dennis Franklin, and
that's who he was. Yeah,
Dennis Franklin was Michigan's first black quarterback. So when we actually played, that was the first time Michigan had a black quarterback and Ohio State had a black quarterback playing simultaneously. Man, I know people wiping their eyes, going, "What's going on here?" In 1973, it was just an awesome game, and we ended up game ended in a 10-10 tie.
Right.
And this was amazing. All 10 athletic directors had to vote either for Michigan or vote for Ohio State to go to the Rose Bowl. And the way it came out, it was 5-4-1. Nobody really knows the real numbers. I heard it was 5-4-1. And Michigan State had the last vote. So it's 4-4-1. So if Michigan State votes for Michigan, they go to Rose Bowl. But Michigan State voted for Ohio State because when the Big Ten was being formed, there were 9 teams, and the 10th team was either going to be Michigan State or Pittsburgh. Well, Michigan voted for Pittsburgh. They didn't want Michigan State in. You talk about a grudge, man. Michigan State held that grudge and sent us to the Rose Bowl.
So did you win your senior year and junior year? Did y'all beat Michigan?
No, my junior year we beat Michigan, and my senior year we beat Michigan. So I'm proud of that. Being 3-0-1 4 years against Michigan, never lost to them. Michigan's greatest coach is 0-3-1 against me.
Hello.
Proud to say that. My home record at Ohio State, 24-0 at home, never lost a home game, 18-0 as a starter. 15 record, 22 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie. So overall, 3-1 as a starter at Ohio State. So
at the time, who was your best offensive lineman, and who was your best defensive player on the other side?
Wow, I mean, we had some unbelievable offensive linemen. I can name them all day, but John Hicks was our left
Big
tackle.
John, yeah.
And John was the first lineman to be runner-up for the Heisman my sophomore year. He came in second place to John Cappelletti. And I think John would have won because Archie was voted 5th, and Randy Gradishar, of course, on defensive side, was voted 7th or 8th in the Heisman. We had Randy Gradishar on the other side of the ball. Yeah. Vandy Cree. We had some great.
Was Tatum on that team?
No, Tatum was about 3 years ahead of me. Okay. And me and Jack are very good friends, and rest his soul.
Wow.
Hey, Flam, boy. Hey, Flam, I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school, I was going to some of the Dunbar games. Chuck was hanging out in St. Anthony, and I don't think he really saw you play. And I was just
Columbus.
raved to him about how great you were. I mean, things I said, everybody on the panel thinks that I'm crazy. They think I'm obnoxious, My question to you is, you were so awesome. Who was your inspiration when you were in high school, not college? I'm not talking about Ohio State, because when you were in high school, you were out of control. And I think it got lost when you went to Ohio State because these guys don't really realize how great your arm was. Who was your inspiration when you were in high school?
I kind of patterned my Sonny Jurgensen was my all-time quarterback growing up in D.C., but, I didn't play like Sonny. So Fran Tarkenton, was he was small, he wasn't big, had a good arm, scrambled around. So, Fran Tarkenton was who I kind of idolized and had my game per se, very similar to his.
Wow. Well, look, we could do this again forever, but what we're going to do now, we're going to pivot and we're going to talk about what's going on in sports.
Sure.
And I know that you follow it, Corny, so we would ask you to jump in as we talk about some of these subjects. And we're going to start with college basketball. And specifically, we're going to start with the NCAA tournament. And they just finished the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. And I'd like to go around the panel, quite frankly, and see if you guys have any thoughts about that past weekend and so forth. David, you want to comment at all about this past weekend in terms of the NCAA tournament?
Well, the past weekend is the past weekend. Now I will say this. One of the great disappointments of the past weekend was watching a team I've been following since I was a kid, Purdue. And Purdue stunk up the joint. They truly did. They have a superstar player who doesn't want to be a superstar in Jaden Ivey.
Yeah.
And had he played like a superstar, Purdue beats St. Peter's.
Yeah.
You're supposed to beat a team like St. Peter's, but when you have a reluctant star, it's not going to happen. But that said, coming toward this weekend, I'm pulling for Duke. And I'm not a big Duke fan, but I'm a fan of nostalgia and recognition of greatness. And Mike Krzyzewski is one of the great all-time coaches in any sport, and I want to see him do well.
Yeah, I like that, David. I agree with you. On a side note, I heard today that the St. Peter's coach, Shaheen, has accepted the offer at Seton Hall, and he's going to be the next head coach at Seton Hall.
He had to.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. He was making $200,000. The Big East, every coach in the Big East is making a minimum of $2 million a year. And that's at the low end, every coach. So he's going to make 10 times as much at Seton Hall, if not more. You have to take it.
I heard somebody say that the Kentucky coach, when they beat Kentucky in the first round, and the Kentucky coach makes $9 million, Calipari, and Shaheen makes $285,000, and they also said 4 players on Kentucky's team makes more than Shaheem. So I thought that was pretty funny. Hey, Larry, any observations from the past weekend? With, for example, North Carolina beat UCLA. UCLA got to the Final Four last year, and Kansas looked good. And I guess everybody was talking about the Blue Bloods, but here they are back in the Final Four. So did you have any thoughts about this past weekend?
My thoughts, unlike David, I was pulling for St. Peter's. I was enjoying them. I thought they played well every game. They just didn't shoot well the first half on Sunday, but most of they were missing shots that they normally would make. Right. But pretty good tournament, pretty evenly balanced out, and I think the cream rose to the top this time. I thought it was wide open. It was pretty enjoyable, but when I see who's there, I'm satisfied with it. Very sorry that the player for Villanova got hurt, because I think that was a downer.
Yeah. Hey, Cornelius, you are familiar with the school that Justin came from. Justin's a DeMatha graduate playing at Villanova. Cornelius' son played basketball at DeMatha, and I think he subsequently played at Vermont. Is that right?
Yes, he was at Vermont, and just to go back to the Villanova, Mo Howard, great Maryland alumni. Me and him are very good friends, and we call each other brothers. And his son, Ashley Howard, was at Villanova, and he was instrumental for them to get their first 2 national championships. And he took the head coaching job at LaSalle and just got released. But so I'm kind of going for Villanova, even though I'm like David. I would like to see Duke come out on top at the end, but if not, Villanova would be much.
Well, listen, I think Villanova's coach, Jay Wright, is one of the classiest coaches in college basketball. And he does it with, he's one of these guys, they don't get too many of these one and dones. They stay the whole 4 years. Yeah. They run a quality program. And I'll tell you another thing he does. He acknowledges that the DMV has some of the best high school basketball players in the country. And he spends time down here recruiting kids of the DMV. They go up there, and I think he's won, 2 or 3 titles in the last 6 or 7 years. So,
correct. He had 2 kids out of Sidwell Friends go to Villanova, and both of them were drafted in the first round.
Sadiq Bey and
Josh Hart.
And Josh Hart, you're right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think he gets enough credit for. He's actually turns out some pros.
I know.
People that weren't real big stars in high school, but when they leave there, they make the NBA.
Yeah, he does a good job. I swear. That jump shot that Chris Jenkins hit that allowed him to win that first national championship. That was a heck of a game against North Carolina.
Man.
That was sweet. That was sweet. Hey, Earl, do you have any observations from this past weekend in terms of the Elite 8 or the Sweet 16?
No, I wasn't surprised by Purdue losing, because as you know.
Okay. Hold on. Hey, Corny, this is going to take a second. He's going to take a shot at our conference, so let's go. Go ahead, Earl. Continue.
This is what happened, Mr. Green. Flam. Before the tournament even started, they picked 9 Big Ten teams. I said it was preposterous. I said it was outrageous. I said Big Ten was the most overrated league in the tournament. I said none of them, not one of the 9 teams would make it to the Final Four. I made that prediction. They didn't even make it to the Final 8. Okay.
I was shocked too, Jojo.
But I think the tournament's going along well. David hates for me to talk like this, but I think the fix is in for Krzyzewski to win it all.
Oh, Earl, stop. There is no such thing as a fix.
I think North Carolina's going to run them out of there. Right. I think North Carolina's going to beat them.
It's tough to beat a team 3 times, especially a team with the quality of Duke. And North Carolina has beat them twice.
So now they only got to beat them once.
Right. And they say this game could be this Duke North Carolina game that's in the semifinal on Saturday could be the largest watched game, college or pro, ever. Which is we all remember when Kareem or Alcindor at the time played Elvin Hayes in the Astrodome.
Yeah.
The biggest, you know what the biggest game was?
Larry Bird versus Magic.
Indiana State against Michigan State. That's
in
the all-time
NCAA
game.
championship game, 1979. So they said this is big. This game is big. So, David, you already shared with the fact that you think Duke will win it, and you're pulling for Coach K.
I'm
Larry,
pulling for Duke.
How about you, Larry?
I'm pulling for North Carolina.
You think North
To beat Duke. I'll see who they face in the championship.
That's right. Well, so you think North Carolina? How about you, Earl? Who do you think will win that North Carolina Duke game?
I've already said I think Duke will win. To answer your question, I think Duke will win. Yes.
How about you, Corny? You have any thoughts on that game? Who do you think will win?
Like you said, it's tough to beat a team 3 times. So hopefully Duke might get by this time.
Yeah. It's funny, man. Both of those teams are just loaded with 4 and 5 stars, and you almost wonder how did they struggle early in the year, both teams, because right now they both look really, really good. So,
well, I think the parity in the leagues are good. You know, if you look at it this year, it hadn't been no dominant team. You know, just like when David talked about Purdue, you know, I thought Purdue was going to be unbelievable this year. Michigan State was down this year. You know, just looking at the Big Ten, Ohio State, you know, all those teams had 8-9 losses, right. You know, which is unbelievable for those type of teams.
Right.
You know, I got to tell you,
one week was 7 out of the top 10 lost, right?
Right.
Yeah, 6.
I got to tell you though, you know, I don't really focus on college basketball until it gets close to, and let me tell you why. At least the modern game of basketball is too often played at the 3-point line. Pass around the edges. And it's so boring. It's just a boring game. I want to see run and gun. I want to see guys drive into the lane. And I think the team that is the fastest is going to win the championship. I hope it's Duke. But you know, if it's a perimeter game, if it's dependent on 3-point shooting, which is bad at the college level, it'll be a boring semifinal and a boring championship game.
Interesting perspective. I thought the whole 3-point shot has made the game better and has brought in more folk.
That's if you hit it. Shot. That's if you hit it. You know, but these guys are not hitting any shots. I mean, how many 3-point shots were hit in this tournament? Very few.
I'll tell you a game I watched was Houston. Who did Houston play? They lost 50-44 against Villanova. It was 50-44. It was the final score. And Houston shot 1 for 20 from the 3-point line.
That's my point.
I was pulling for Houston.
You just made my point.
Because of Kelvin Sampson. And they played defense like I've never. I mean, no other team in the tournament plays defense like they do. They just can't score.
You know, coaches have too much of a role. You know, as much as I admire Coach Krzyzewski, coaches have too much of a role in college basketball. Slow the game down, and when it gets down to 3 minutes left in the game, those 3 minutes take 45 minutes. Oh my God!
Yeah. So anyway. Listen. Maybe this is too much, or maybe I'm putting you guys on the spot here, but who do you think ultimately, once this is all said and done, and we have the championship game on Monday, who will be the champion and who will be the tournament MVP?
I'm going to Villanova. I'm going to go. My fault.
Go ahead. No, Corny, go.
I'm going with Villanova, and I think that the point guard they got, man, is unbelievable kid, man. I mean, he changed the game, and he hits that 3. Yeah, he takes it and he hits it.
Archie,
he's consistent hitting it. So I'm going Villanova.
Villanova, and you like that kid to be the MVP.
And that kid is the point guard. Yeah.
How about you, Larry? You have any thoughts on who will win it all and who the MVP might be?
I'm not sure who's going to be the MVP because I watch less college basketball than David does.
We'll get to pro basketball in a minute, Larry.
But really, Kansas looks like the strongest team to me.
Really?
But I'm rooting for North Carolina.
Okay. Go. You have any thoughts on who will win it? And
I have no thoughts on who will win it. It's really hard for me because, like I said, when I was a big Maryland fan, I cannot sit here and say that I'm pulling for Duke. I can't say that. And I can't say I'm pulling for Villanova because they broke my heart against Georgetown. So there's no team for me that I'm pulling for. So frankly, to make a long story short, I can't tell you who's going to be at the end, and I don't even care.
Wow.
Hey, before we get into the NBA, I'm gonna ask you one. And I don't want to get into a big argument or discussion on this. I just want to get Corny's thought because I don't know, and I know you guys' thoughts. Hey, Corny, who's the greatest? Who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT in pro basketball? The GOAT.
Well, I've seen them all, man, and I gotta go with my Buckeye LeBron. I've always been a LeBron fan, and I just love what he does for the community back up in Akron, and how he sets. He's just a great player, man. Even at 37, I mean, what he's doing this year, even though his team haven't been doing well, but I mean, he hasn't lost a step. LeBron is mine. I mean,
so look, they're gonna think I set that up, Corny. They will.
No, I mean,
you did.
Yeah, I'm a Buckeye. So LeBron's a Buckeye, man. I've never been that Michael Jordan. I mean, Michael's been great, but Michael's game was he always made himself good. I mean, Michael makes himself good. He didn't make everybody else good. So I mean, LeBron is
I'm with you, Cornelius. I'm with you.
So before you go to the NBA, I know we touched on it a little bit last week, but I wanted to ask Flamboyant, what did he think about the Tyreek Hill trade? Before we go to the NBA, I just want to throw that in right quick.
Tyreek Hill, the wide receiver.
Yeah, he went from Kansas City to Miami in a big trade.
Yeah, well, in NFL, man, if you give your quarterback $50 million, you can't spread that wealth around. And Tyreek Hill wasn't going to stay there for $5 million when another team might give him 18. Right. So that's why he went there and requested that trade. And he's not the number one receiver. The tight end is the number one receiver for KC. So he probably wanted to be the man, and now he is the man going to Miami.
Same thing happened in Cleveland too.
Yeah,
that's why. Or not Cleveland, Green Bay. They gave the
What's going to happen in Cleveland next year after they gave the quarterback all that money? I mean, they're not going to be able to pay everybody there.
Right.
So, I mean, it's going to happen probably a year or two down the road for Cleveland as well if they don't win it in next year or after.
Well, listen, let's pivot again into the NBA. Look at Larry perking up already. So pivot, yeah. I
like the way you worked that in there.
I worked that one in, right? So yeah, let's talk about the week that was in the NBA. And I guess last night there was a big game between Philadelphia and Milwaukee. And David's guy, Giannis, had a big block on Embiid at the end that allowed Milwaukee to win that game. And that game had like a playoff kind of thing to it. And some people would say those two are perhaps, quite frankly, the two who probably will get the MVP. I don't know which one of the two, but I think Giannis is in that race big time.
Oh, yeah.
Larry, do you have any thoughts about that game or any thoughts in terms of this past weekend in the NBA?
Great game. I'd love to see those two teams face each other in the playoffs. With respect to the past week, I've been following Boston and Memphis for the last few weeks. Unfortunately for Boston, their center got hurt, and bad timing for that. Of course, for Memphis, Ja is out, but they've still been winning,
18-2.
Another great week. The teams like Phoenix, they go on the road and beat people. Memphis beats people. I think it's shaping out. The cream is certainly rising to the top. I know I said that earlier in the show, but that's happening again now.
Right. David, how about your boy Giannis? I don't know if you saw that last night or.
No, I saw the block. He, you know how I feel about Giannis. He's the best player in the world. He doesn't get enough credit. If he was playing in New York or LA, there wouldn't be any question about who the best player in the world is.
Got multiple MVPs,
he is better than Embiid. That's why he blocked Embiid's shot. I think Giannis is not going to win the MVP. He's already won 2, and there is MVP fatigue when somebody's won multiple MVPs. I think the kid from Denver is going to win again. What's his name that covers the NBA for ESPN was on this morning, and he and his partner have done a sampling of the actual voters for MVP. And right now, I'm blanking on his name. The kid from Denver, Jokic is in the lead, and he could win the MVP for a second straight year, and it wouldn't be a surprise. It doesn't really matter where Denver is. You know, Jokic is one of the best players in the world. I would say he's better than Embiid as well.
Wow. Earl, do you have any thoughts about that specific game last night, the Philadelphia-Milwaukee game, and or any thoughts about the NBA this week? Anything that David just said?
Well, I thought it was a great game last night, and I will piggyback. It did seem like it was playoff atmosphere. Now, as far as what David said, that Jokic is better than Embiid, I disagree with that. They're close, but I wouldn't say that Jokic is better than Embiid.
Why not?
Because I just wouldn't say it.
I mean, but why? Based on what? I just want to know. I'm just asking. That's something you say all the time. I'm just asking.
Well, I think Denver's in sixth place.
I think Embiid has more skills than Jokic.
Oh my
I know
God!
Jokic is a great passer.
Oh my God! Are you kidding me? Okay,
they had a good head-to-head match last week, and they played pretty even.
But Jokic is a better passer, but recently, the last few weeks, Embiid's been hitting that three.
All year.
Okay. He's been doing it all season.
Yeah,
He's been doing it all season.
Jokic may have the passing over him, but I would say Embiid has a little bit more.
Does Jokic have the rebounding over him too? Doesn't he? I think he does. I
mean, seriously, aren't they in sixth or seventh place, Denver?
Well,
I mean,
just because you have better statistics than somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you're better than.
All I'm saying is, based on what I'm hearing,
Giannis is the best player in the world when Kevin Durant is the best player in the world. I'm looking.
Kevin Durant is not the best player in the worord. He may be one of the most skilled players in the world, but he's not the best.
Corny, we were acting nice at first. Now the real
the gloves have come off.
I love it.
Hey, Corny, 37 minutes.
Hey, Corny, did you happen to either see any of the game last night or have any thoughts about the Philadelphia Bucks game or about Embiid and Giannis in terms of who might win the MVP?
I heard what David heard with the panel was going with Jokic being over Embiid, but kid up in Milwaukee, man. I mean, probably had to give him that MVP again this year. I'm going to kid up in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You know, it's really kind of hard to argue with any three of them, any one of those three that win it. I mean, it's really that close.
Yeah.
I just think Giannis up there in Milwaukee is taking a small market and made them bigger than the Lakers. I mean, wait till this playoffs comes around. I mean, if they do what they did like last year again, man, I mean, that was unbelievable what they did. Have a small market like Milwaukee going in and taking it all. Very, very surprising. But, you know, they got that point guard and the other kid, man, they got a big three there too. It's just not known like the other big three for the other teams around the league.
Man. Amen.
You just made David's day, Cornelius.
You guys don't watch enough basketball. Everybody knows them. Everybody knows them. All of us diehard NBA fans know them.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. They've got what, Larry, 7, 8, 9 games left in the season?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I'm geared up for the playoffs now.
Yeah, I know. So as you know, I'm a LeBron man, and as I'm a Laker fan. And last night was about it. I mean, we've had some low points. We really have. But last night might have been the low. I know LeBron and I know AD didn't play, but do you know at halftime of the Dallas Laker game, Dallas had 82 points at halftime?
Yeah,
and they're now in 11th place. I don't think they're going to even make the play-in game, which is
Chuck,
disappointing.
We have the honor and the privilege of having the great Cornelius Green on our show.
Sorry, Earl.
Rose Bowl MVP. First black quarterback in Ohio State. Why in the hell are we wasting any of his and David, Larry, or my time talking about the Lakers and LeBron? I'm just asking.
There it is, David. There it is, David. Hey, listen, I was just going to make mention of that and move on, Earl. I apologize. Probably shouldn't have brought that up.
So you bringing stuff up like that gives credence to David's argument that people in big cities get talked about. We don't talk about them.
Okay. So look.
They're pure trash, Chuck. The Lakers are pure trash.
I get it.
And you know, you still got people running around. Even the press talking about, oh, if Anthony Davis comes back, they have it. No, they don't have no chance. They are. Where's the fork? You need to stick it in them. They are done.
All right. You know what I heard? David will like this too. You know what I heard? If LeBron doesn't make the playoffs this year, it'll be the fourth time in his 19-year career that he has not made the playoffs. You know how many times Magic and Bird together, how many times they missed the playoffs in their career?
0.
Can you believe that? They did not miss a playoff in their entire career, the two of them.
Man.
Now, Michael Jordan did, but they didn't. So we'll move on. Hey, before we leave the NBA, I have one last question for the group. So, and I found this interesting. This kind of jumped at me this week. So I'm going to use two names, Taylor Jenkins and Ime Udoka. If not those two, who do you think will be coach of the year in the NBA? I find this race going to be fascinating.
I'll say Monty Williams.
There is no other two.
Monty Williams should certainly be considered because he's got the best record. And I'll say Eric Spoelstra because I think he has less talent. And his team is starting to fall off now. But he's had Miami playing very well.
Well, man, just put you on the spot then, Larry. Who do you think will be coach of the year? Or who do you think should be coach of the year?
I would even say Monty Williams or Taylor Jenkins.
David, who do you think will be coach of the year and should be coach of the year?
Let me just say this. It's going to be a tie. There will be two coaches. It'll be Taylor Jenkins of Memphis and Ime Udoka from Boston. They're outstanding. And they're just young coaches to the scene. They've done well. And I just think that Monty Williams done well at Phoenix.
Yep.
But I think the way coach of the year is often voted, it's not necessarily the best coach. It's not necessarily the coach with the best record. It's the one who's had kind of the surprising impact. And those two guys kind of evenly have been surprising.
I agree.
And so it's either going to be one of those two who will be coach of the year.
I agree with you.
I guarantee it.
I'm gonna go with the Memphis coach.
That's Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah, reason being is that he's been able to have those kids at 18-2 without their best player.
I know,
That's an unbelievable coaching job.
I agree with you.
Tremendous.
It's stunning.
And, he should get that award hands down.
I agree with you. Corny, I absolutely agree with you. And like you said, 18-2 without their star player. So
the reason I bring Boston up is Boston has had the best record this calendar year.
Yeah,
I think they've only lost 4 games in 2022.
They were 17-19 coming into the new year, and now they're like either in first place or just a half a game.
Their first.
It's amazing what he's done.
All those guys are good, but keeping Monty Williams lost his point guard, a very valuable player for a long time too.
But
and they're still way ahead of everybody.
But I just don't think they're going to give it to him. I just don't think they're going to give it to him.
Well,
they were good last year too, Larry. Come on, they were
not this good. Not this good.
That's just not the way the voting tends to work.
Right.
You know, the voting just tends to work for a new person.
Earl, do you have any thoughts about the coach of the year? Who will it be, and who do you think it should be?
The coach of the year is the guy from Boston. It's funny how I lambasted Stevens all that shit, telling Boston they need to get rid of him. They get rid of him, and now Boston's like playing crazy. It's funny how things work out, right?
He's the GM.
Huh?
Brad Stevens is the GM.
He's not coaching them.
Well, sometimes you can make better decisions when you step
sometimes
away.
you need a coach.
Brad Stevens is a pretty damn good coach.
Just like
You better leave my Indianapolis guy
Earl,
alone.
he's from Indiana, Earl.
No, just like you guys running around
the
saying this
metro
dumb
of
stuff about
Indianapolis.
Frank Vogel
He's
don't
not
need
just
to go.
from Indiana.
That
He's from the
team has quit
Indianapolis
on Frank
metro.
Vogel. Frank Vogel needs to go. He's a bum.
Oh my
The
God!
coach of the year is the coach of Boston.
Does Frank Vogel have a ring?
Are we talking about the Lakers again?
No, I'm not, Larry. I'm not.
Earl is. Earl can't help himself.
No, I'm talking about them.
Yeah,
that
you just can't help yourself.
We're talking about coaches. Answer your question. The coach of the year is the coach of Boston.
Thank you.
Hey, before we get too further, since we have Corny on, I'd like to get Corny's thoughts on two things that are going on in college athletics and see what, he played college sports. I'm sure he's watching what's going on there. Two things. One, name, image, and likeness. And two, the portal, the transfer portal. Do you have any thoughts on either of those two or both of those?
I love them both. I mean, especially the transfer portal. If a coach can do it, why can't a player can do it? The coaches at your parents' home, and next day they're gone. I remember when Saban was at Michigan State, and the big wide receiver played with the Giants out of Michigan State. He shot himself.
Oh, yeah. The 6'7", 6'8" kid.
Yeah. And Saban told him to stay the next year. And then the next day, I think he took the LSU job. So, so that goes on. But, I mean, name and likeness is unbelievable for these kids to get paid. I mean, when we was at Ohio State, I got a total of a $9 check every 3 months. And that was for laundry. And, we couldn't even afford to buy our own jerseys out of me and Archie. The 7 and 45 was the most popular jersey in the whole state, and we didn't even own one. So, yeah, I'm all for it. And the transfer portal makes everybody better.
Yes.
So it's been a good thing so far. So.
Yeah, Iowa was 2-22 last year. This year, they made the Sweet 16 as a result of all the activity that they pulled off in that portal. So that portal is huge.
It works. Especially, I see it happening more for quarterbacks.
Yeah, oh, for real.
I mean, those young quarterbacks aren't sticking around if they don't play, like Ohio State got this unbelievable second-string quarterback under C.J. Stroud right now, and he's going to have to stay another year. He's out of Philadelphia. So that's how it goes. But that kid is staying, and luckily he's staying because sometimes it doesn't work for you.
Right.
You can go to those other schools and it just doesn't work.
Well, it sure worked out for Burrows, who was a backup quarterback at Ohio State and went down to LSU.
God. How did
that work out for him?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
They let Burrows go and kept Haskins, and man.
What do you think? What do you think, Corny? And I know you have a relationship with him, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But do you think Dwayne will figure it out and be a contributor as a quarterback in the league eventually?
I know his parents, and I think Pittsburgh was the best place for him to go. The head coach and Dwayne, they got the same agent, so that's probably why he's in Pittsburgh. Can
I ask you, Cornelius?
Sure.
What the heck is going on with Haskins? Why isn't he together?
I think money, too much money, single, stardom, all that was too much for him. Couldn't handle it. I think in Pittsburgh, I heard he's married. He's in a small town, going home after practice, not partying. All those kind of things he should have been doing when he was here in D.C. And it's very surprising because his father is a minister. His father's a minister, man, and very religious. His father sends me religious quotes twice a week, even today. So I was shocked that with all that occurring. But like a lot of ministers' sons, man, I know a lot of ministers' sons too. They go on the opposite side. But I want to take a quick little second, and this is just not related. we lost one of my teammates, Woodrow Roach.
Oh yeah,
Ohio State that went to Roosevelt High School here in Washington D.C. And we had to look at this mental health thing too, because I know I had 8 concussions, and while I played at Ohio State, and where concussions wasn't even out at the time, it was just you got your bell rung. And I think my friend Woodrow was suffering from CTE, and I know he got it from college, but that won't go on his death certificate. But mental health kind of destroyed him and killed him. But I had to get that out.
I also know. I also know that you did a lot of work in terms of support for Rod too, Cornelius.
Yeah.
And how is he? Is he?
Well, Rod, the sad part about college football is that you're not insured, and so Rod has had like 5 neck and back surgeries. I mean, he's in horrible shape right now, Snow. And I try to get with the university, try to lend a hand and give him some help, and they said that there's a violation. And we put our body parts out in that college field, and when you need assistance as you get older and some help, they turn their back on you.
Yeah, I was Rod that we're talking about is Rod Gerald. Rod Gerald was his number was, I think it was number 8, and he was the quarterback after Corny, the next black quarterback after Corny at Ohio State.
And I helped Rod get to Ohio State. He was out of Dallas, Texas. And I knew he was a guy to be there because his dad was a minister and his father's name was Cornelius Howard Gerald. And my name is Cornelius Howard Green. I mean, you can't even make that up.
He had to be there.
Yeah, Rod was a great quarterback.
He was unbelievable. He was unbelievable guy, unbelievable quarterback. And it's just sad to see him going through what he's going through right now.
Right.
Well, Corny, before you came on the show, from the first time I came on the show, I'm an advocate for college athletes being employees. I think the school should play them directly. Plus, if they're employees, if they get hurt, there's obligation through workers' comp. And I think that's the biggest scam that the NCAA is staying away for, is that workers' comp. And a lot of people get hurt.
I agree, Larry. And there was a player like 2 years ago that got hurt, helmet, got all messed up on the field. Well, that injury went for like 4 months, so the kid couldn't go to class and he had to go back home. So once he went back home, then all his credits were gone. He's out of school, and now his parents didn't have insurance, and now his parents had to pay for his medical bills. And that's when you find out that those kids out there playing football in college are not even insured.
And think of the ones that get paralyzed. I mean, they have lifelong. Their families have lifelong bills.
Yeah, and so you're as a parent, you're going to have to take up that responsibility, if it lingers past the 4 years that kid is played at that particular school.
Wow. Well, look, speaking of football, do we want to touch on the National Football League? In other words, was anything happened this week that the real fellas would like to touch on? There is one that I would, and I would like to throw it out to the panel. We had a discussion a couple months ago about there was a great game between Buffalo and the Chiefs. It was a great playoff game, absolutely great. It went to overtime. They flipped the coin. Mahomes won the toss, took him down the field, scored, ball game. Josh Allen didn't even get a chance to play again. And I said on the show then, and we had a big debate about this, I hated that rule because it was unfair through a coin flip for Josh Allen not to get the chance to get the ball. Well, they made that rule change this week. And in the playoffs, both teams, if they score, the other team will get another opportunity. So I'd like to go around the panel and see what your thoughts are, or anything else that happened in the National Football League this week that you might have some thoughts on. And since David has been shaking his head, we are going to start with Mr. Burnett, because I think he and I are the two people that went at it about this when it happened.
And we'll go at it again.
Let's do it.
The rule change is so unnecessary. First of all, if you cannot stop a guy or a team from scoring a touchdown, they already changed the rule. So if you get a field goal, you get another chance. At least hold them to a field goal, but they can't do it. I don't care whether that Josh Allen didn't get a shot. His defense sucked. And so they're supposed to lose. Bye. Go home. Okay, we've changed because we're whining and crying. So what? Okay. But
so
Buffalo needs a better defense, and if they had a better defense, they would have had a chance to win the game, and they didn't. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Abels, do you have any thoughts on that whole the rule change and that whole thing?
I think the rule change is a step in the right direction. I'm a proponent for playing like a 10-minute period, and whoever's ahead after that, if it's tied after that, then go to the sudden death. I think football, the reason I say that, it's too easy to score in the NFL now. I mean, back when we were younger, defenses actually were pretty good. I mean, it's too easy to score. So I think both teams at least deserve a crack at it.
Go. You have any thoughts about the rule change?
I think the rule change was some trash. It was fine the way it was. A couple of teams got mad because they lost some games. First of all, the NFL is just doing too much to try to help the offensive teams. Second of all, that makes the game longer. Let's not forget they've already added on 2 more games for the season. Let's add more time to those games where players can possibly be injured playing more times like that. And the rule they had was fine. You had a chance to stop the paper. You couldn't stop them. You don't need to deserve. You can't have these people playing all night.
Amen.
We're only talking about the playoffs now. Come on.
I know a coin flip should dictate.
Okay, wait a minute. First of all, it already shows you it's a farce. Wait a minute. We're gonna play this way during the regular season. We're gonna play this way in playoff. That's dumb. Why don't you have a consistent rule? It doesn't even make sense.
The ties matter in the regular season. They don't matter in the playoffs. But that's Cornelius. Do you have any thoughts about the rule and the rule change and the reason for the rule change?
I thought it was a good move because NFL got to please the fans, and so when you got Buffalo fans, like in that particular game, Buffalo and Kansas City, I mean, those Buffalo fans were going crazy not to get a shot. I know why they changed that rule.
Buffalo fans need to say get a better defense. That's what they need.
I agree with you too, David. And so did Kansas City.
Right.
Their defense wasn't there either.
It's like 7-on-7 drills out there. That's what they're playing. 7-on-7 drills.
You're 100%.
But like Go said, I mean, everything is for the offense. I mean, the defensive backs can't touch the guys anymore. So, that opens it up for these fast wide receivers. The NFL is all wide receivers now. You're probably going to have about 9 or 10 wide receivers going in the first round in this draft.
Yeah.
So it's all about wide receivers, and that was all for the fans. But I mean, as a fan, I think it's good. I think it's good.
Good. Well, look, we are coming near the end of the show. I want to take another second to say thank you, Mr. Cornelius Green, for joining us. And
Absolutely.
The real fellas, you have absolutely brought some decorum to this group. This group can get a little out of control. We're on our best behavior tonight, so I want to thank you for that specifically.
Thank you.
But before we go, Corny, and the guys know this, we go around the panel to see if they have any closing remarks. And I don't have any. We'll start with you, Go. You have any closing remarks?
No, I don't.
David, you have any closing remarks?
I certainly do. And mine is applauding the Women's National Basketball Championship, which starts this weekend in Minneapolis. We don't talk much about the women's tournament. We don't on Real Fellas. Most of America doesn't talk much about it either. But in case you need to know, the ladies' Final Four is in Minneapolis on Friday night. The semifinal games are then. Louisville takes on number 1 ranked South Carolina. The second game, defending national champion Stanford against the women's basketball GOAT team, UConn. I say GOAT because UConn has won 11 national championships, and they are in a phenomenal 14th consecutive Final Four. I'm rooting for South Carolina under the great coach Dawn Staley, who will be hoping for her second national title. The championship game is going to be played Sunday night. I will be watching, and I hope all of you will be watching too. That's
Hey,
my
David.
closing thought.
Hey, David, one quick comment about that. I'm glad you brought that up. I saw a game the other night between UConn and North Carolina State. It was double overtime. That game was unbelievable. It was an incredible game. They had this girl named Paige Becker. She was hitting jumpers off the dribble, off screens. And then they had the girl Aziza Fudd from Sidwell Friends. No. She's from St. John's. I'm sorry. She's from St. John's. The two backcourt of UConn. That game was phenomenal. So I'm glad you brought that up. Good point, David. Larry, do you have any closing comments?
Sure. As we all know, the Oscars were this week. And there was something very significant on there. Stephon Curry and Shaq got an award for producing the film on Lucy, the Queen of Basketball. I've seen that film earlier this year, and I'm very happy that it was recognized for one of the awards. It was a great film. If you haven't had a chance to see it, please look at it.
Good move on me, Larry. That was a good move. Hey, Corny, I know we put you on the spot, but if you got anything you want to say there before we close it out?
Well, I mean, just for the listeners and for you guys as well, you know, my last point is, if it is to be, it's up to me. You know, always believe in yourself. You know, always figure out what's going on, but always believe in yourself. Never give up hope.
Good words. A great way to close the show. And Corny, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you both for having me.
Great having you, brother.
Appreciate you guys.
Well, listen, you guys, that's all we've got. Thanks for joining us again. Thousands and thousands of listeners out there. Thanks for joining us again this week. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of the week. And see you next week, real fellas.
All right.
All right. Take care, fellas.